What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Comically Boston. I'm your host, Big Cam, and today we are talking about Season 2, Episode 3 of House of the Dragon, titled The Burning Mill. Talking about the Battle of Burning Mill, and this was a good episode, not as crazy as the first two. The first episode, obviously, we had that beheading, if you would. The second episode was twin versus twin, you know, the previously on was twin versus twin battle towards the end of that last episode. This episode, not so much sword fighting, but we got a little bit of dragon stuff, and we get a little bit of Damon being Damon, and Rhaenyra and Alicent come face to face, but we're going to talk about all that. Don't worry, we'll get to it by the end of the video today. But we kick off from last episode, and Otto Hightower called his grandson a fool and got his ass booted off the small council, and he is no longer Hand of the King. So no more Rhys Ifans absolutely slaying it in this episode. He's not there. He's talked about but not shown, or we don't see what he's up to. I thought for sure we were going to see Alicent's other son Daeron this episode, but no, we actually get to see Alicent's brother, but we'll get to that. The intro plays, and I believe they did actually add a couple things to the end of this intro. The beheading from the first episode, and then also the rat catchers hanging that we also get a little piece of in this episode, but added to the tapestry in the main intro. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. They did add to it after last week not adding to it, so they added to it this week. I wonder if they will add maybe the Battle of Burning Mill next week. But I'm thinking episode 4 the following week is going to be absolutely insanity. Next Sunday, it's going to be a big one. But we kick off this episode with a bunch of men in a field, the Brackens and the Blackwoods. Half of them are Team Rhaenyra, half of them are for King Aegon, and Team Green. So, of course, this is going to end poorly, but you see this shot here with the windmill in the background, so you know that this is the same location as it was and will be later in a couple seconds. But the Blackwood, I believe, is the man on the left, and he says Aegon Targaryen's no true king. So of course I liked him right off the bat, but let's actually play the clip of what happens here and see what they're fighting about.
Your uncle declared for Aegon, did he? Well then, let me tell you, Aegon Targaryen is no true king, just as you are no true knight. You're both craven little gods! You wouldn't dare.
Right, so this poor Blackwood bastard, that he started it, but the Brackens pulled first steel, and he goes, you wouldn't dare. And the very next shot is that same man with a knife through his neck as we pan back and see the entire Battle of Burning Mill, and you can see that mill in the background burning, and just bodies absolutely screwed everywhere. And I was like, damn, I'm shocked they didn't actually show us this, you know, battle and show us the carnage. But I felt like that battle, you know, if it didn't involve dragons and it just was small folk versus small folk, but small folk fighting over Rhaenyra in Aegon being king, you know, clearly they're both losers at this point and just lost a ton of men. And they even say it later in the episode, you know, both sides of it, they're talking about the battle, and they're like, I'm not sure we can consider this a win on either side, right? Like, just a ton of soldiers that we were both trying to recruit for either side are now just dead in this field, and some in the river, and this poor mill's on fire. So, I don't know, man. It doesn't seem to have worked out. But that is where the title of the episode, The Burning Mill, comes in, from the Battle of the Burning Mill. Cut back to Rhaenyra on Dragonstone. She's burying, oof, why does that word sound weird coming out of my mouth? Burying the twins, and they both get buried together, right? Not even like her. I guess maybe she didn't know which one was which, so she didn't want to, you know, bury the one she thought was hers in a good grave, and then just toss the other one in the ocean, and then have done the wrong one. So she just goes, bury them both. They were both knights. Whatever. But the entire family looks on. Jace, Rhaenyra, or some of the family looks on. It looks like just Jace, Rhaenys, maybe Baela, a couple of her King's Guardsmen. But Jace walks away, and Rhaenyra and Rhaenys catch up, and Rhaenys says Otto would have never allowed this. Now it's just men wanting to fight and terrible things. And when did it all start? Is it when a boy had been beheaded? Is it when Aemond on back of Rhaegar killed Luke? Is it when Luke stabbed his eye? And then they start talking about Alicent, and it's just like, it's a tough situation, man. It really is. But you're like, you feel for both sides. But I'm team Rhaenyra all the fucking way, my queen. But I also love Rhaenys. Rhaenys is such a badass. And Rhaenys says, there's no war so bloody than one between dragons. And she's damn right. And I believe that's where this season's heading, to the Dance of the Dragons. And this is going to be a full-on bloody season of Dragon v. Dragon the rest of the way out, I believe. If not, the next episode's going to be a big one. Because normally in a 10-episode Game of Thrones season, or even the first season of House of the Dragon, episode 5 is normally a really big one, and then like normally episode 9 and then the finale are really big ones. So if they're condensing that down a little bit, and we only got 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 left, 5 episodes, but next week's going to be the mid-season point, you know, like 4 out of 8 is going to be mid-season. I think next week, and then maybe we'll have 1 or 2, you know, maybe 6 or 7 will be kind of more like this episode, setting up what's going to happen next. And then I believe 4 and 8 are going to be the big ones this season. But I could be wrong, but I know next week it feels like a powder keg about to go off. So it's got to be next week's going to be a big one. But we cut back to King's Landing, and Sir Criston Cole, now Hand of the King, is late for his first small council meeting. And he walks in, they talk about the Blackwoods versus Bracken War, and Cole immediately, you know, he becomes Hand, and he goes, yeah, I gotta get the hell out of here. I'll go to the Riverlands and fight and get Harrenhal. And Aegon goes, okay, send Vhagar with you, and Aemond. And he goes, no, he should stay here and protect the city. And then Aegon the king goes, alright, I'll go with you on the back of Sunfire. You need a dragon. He goes, no, sir, we can't risk you getting hurt or being out in the field. And he goes, I'm as fearsome as any of them. And everyone in the room kind of sighs. Ugh. But then we cut back to Dragonstone, and Mysaria is looking over the sea, and sees sea smoke flying over the sea and making a bunch of noise. And Mysaria and Rhaenyra talk. And Mysaria she says she's not often surprised but when someone reacts, and she goes, you let me leave and offered me mercy when you could have not. And she goes, and I'm not often surprised. She goes, oh, let me be on your small council and work for you and that type of thing. And so, you know, Rhaenyra kind of gets a Master of Whisperers in Mysaria this episode, but Aegon also gets a Master of Whisperers in Larys Clubfoot, whatever we want to call him, Larys Strong. But then Mysaria makes an observation and goes, sea smoke is restless, and she goes, maybe he's lonely, and then it cuts away there. And then we cut back to Rhaenyra talking to Rhaena and wants to send her to Pentos. And she's like, where my mother died, but also where she was born. And it's far enough away that, like, no one's really going to be looking for them there. And she asks her to be a mother to her kids that she cannot be for right now. Right? So, like, she's sending her son Joffrey, which is really Joffrey Strong, and then her 2 boys with Daemon, and sending them to Pentos to protect their future. Then we cut to Daemon arriving at Harrenhal, and I got some clips of this, and it's just so moody in the rain, and seeing Caraxes arrive at Harrenhal. Let's take a look at this. I love how Harrenhal looks in the clanking of his armor, and you hear Caraxes roar, and Harrenhal's like melted and it's destroyed, and it just, oh, it's so good. But seeing Caraxes, you know, just in the rain, just this bloodworm, but he looks dark because he's like Daemon, he's wearing that black dread armor, but Daemon has like no lines, right? Like he's just walking through, and like you're hearing these noises and a clang here and a whisper, Daemon, you know, and you're hearing voices, and you're hearing just rain trickling, and this whole place is just wet, and it's pouring, and lightning in the background, and it's so moody, but I love it so much. And this place feels so haunted, and maybe that's because it's been one of the most unlucky places ever built. And this just goes to show, you know, Harrenhal is known for being the biggest castle in Westeros, and Harren the Black spent 40 years and worked thousands of slaves to death to build Harrenhal. And the day it was done, Aegon Targaryen arrived to Westeros for Aegon's conquest and on 3 dragons, and pretty much melted the entire thing. So as you're walking around this place, you see melted rock, you know, like it got so hot that it melted. The entire roof of the big hall is caved in. That's the same hall that we saw King Viserys get crowned in, and Jaehaerys sitting on the throne, and Rhaenys getting passed up as the queen that never was, or you know, that type of thing. And it's really something else. Like I honestly loved this whole part of him walking through, and it feels so haunted and creepy, but it also feels so good. You're like, oh man, this just looks awesome. And the rain, and I don't know why I'm such a sucker for a rain scene, and you just hear the water, like no lines, right? Like you just hear the clanking of his armor as he looks around, like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. But let's continue on this clip to see Daemon claim Harrenhal.
I'm claiming Harrenhal.
Apparently so. I, Sir Simon Strong, Castellan of Harrenhal, pledge fealty to Rhaenyra of House Targaryen, first of her name. I swear this by the old gods and the new. Supper is venison with black cabbage and peas. No red currant. Sorry about that.
I'm claiming Harrenhal, and he goes, apparently so, and then offers him, you know, pledges his fealty, and then goes, dinner's venison and cabbage, you know, if you want. And David thinks it's poison, so he's like, I will not be felded by poisoned peas, you know, like, and you're like, all right, well, I don't disagree with him there. And the guy goes, if you haven't noticed yet, you're welcome here. And he also knows, apparently, that Larys Strong is the reason why his father and brother are dead. And he goes, look, Larys Clubfoot is no lord of mine, and Harrenhal is the largest castle, but it is in need of some serious repairs. He goes, it's in disrepair, and he goes, maybe we need to get some repairs going. He goes, even if we had the coin, your prince. And he goes, your grace. And then he calls him your prince again, and every time he says your prince, Daemon just kind of sits back and just kind of like, you know, just like you feel his anger. You're like, don't piss him off, he'll kill you. But I will say his restraint when he walks in to claim the place, the one strong knight that he encounters, he just kind of punches and knocks out. He could have stabbed him, he had a sword, but he decided just to punch him a bunch and knock his ass out. But Sir Simon Strong asks Daemon, why are you here? And he goes, I need to house 40,000 swords here, and Harrenhal's the biggest castle, so this would be a good place to do it. And he's like, but you don't know about the Battle of Bracken and Blackwood. So Daemon gets filled in on what's happened in the Riverlands in the Battle of the Burning Mill. Daemon wants to go meet Tully. Tully's apparently on his deathbed. He goes, "I'll talk to him either way." And he goes, and then Simon Strong asks, "What will you do when you're successful?" Or he starts by saying if, and he goes, "But if or when you're successful, what will you do?" And he goes, "March on King's Landing and take the throne." The guy goes, "The throne? It's a big chair made of swords." You know, like, and then they cut away from Daemon. We cut back to Cole. So Sir Criston Cole now has a haircut, and his troops are getting ready for them to take off. And he meets Sir Gawain, Knight Gawain. Not Dwayne, Gawain. And he is Alicent's sister. And he's all attitude heavy. And he's like, I 3 months of travel. And I get here and figure out that my father has been replaced as Hand of the King after he had served faithfully for 3 kings before him. And you're like, not some bad points. But also we know why Sir Criston Cole is now the Hand of the King. And this guy Dwayne is no knight to challenge that, but he's, you know, trying to defend his family a little bit. But going back just a little bit here, I really loved just how scarce the room is and how little amount of people are in the biggest castle in Westeros, and it's just these couple people, the Strongs, and they just kind of lay over. And Sir Simon here, just he's did a great job, great line reads. But Daemon, you know, showing up in that armor, fully ready for battle, like all he wanted was to face some type of resistance, and just got none. Yeah, that armor though looks pretty damn good. And Matt Smith, you look pretty damn good in that armor, I'll tell you what. Alicent tells Sir Criston that her brother will be joining him on the war party, and he goes, "Yeah, we're pretty full." And she goes, "Well, you'll be fuller." And he like, just okay, I guess he's coming. Like, and then she gives Sir Criston blessings and prayers to send him on his way, and he turns around and asks for her favor, but not just her favor. He goes, "But I would like to go to war with you in my heart, your grace." And she pulls a little favor out of her tit and hands it to him, and you know, he goes, "Thank you, your grace," and he leaves with her favor. But her brother clocks this little, "Are you with my sister, Sir Criston Cole? You're supposed to be not getting laid here. You're supposed to be celibacy as a knight of the King's Guard and a Lord Commander." But the war party takes off, and we get a shot of them leaving, and then it pans up, and we see a shot of the rat catchers still hanging in King's Landing, but now decayed, and it's a shot of the guy Cheese with his, you know, decayed face, and a crow is eating out his eye, and I was like, oh my god. But it's also, it adds like a sense of time, you know, how much time has passed since he's been hung, you know, not that much time, but enough for him to start decaying. What happens when he decays? Animals start to get to it, you know, like, I love how dark it is, but it also like is beautiful storytelling, right? And it's so well done. Like, I really can't say how good House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones storytelling is. It's phenomenal. But Rhaenys lands at Dragonstone. She reports back to Rhaenyra's small council. I really love that too, as we're bouncing between one king in King's Landing, the Green's small council, and then the Black small council at Dragonstone. And Dragonstone and King's Landing aren't very far from each other either. It's a very quick dragonback ride, I'm pretty sure. But Rhaenys reports back to the small council. The Riverlands are aflame from the Battle of the Burning Mill. Title of the episode. Rhaenyra's council, it says she's too exposed here. They clearly have the capabilities to show up and get in our castle and be in your room, right? Like, so they're not wrong by saying she's exposed, because there was an assassin in her room trying to kill her. And, you know, but they snuffed that out. But they say maybe she needs to go somewhere. And he goes, "Are you saying you're going to conduct my war party without me?" And he goes, "Maybe it would be for the best." And she goes, "It would be treason." The guy like, all right, I get it. Like, but as she says this, she ends the meeting, stands up, and walks away. And Rhaenys stands up for her. And Rhaenys says, "The council would do well to remember that their queen wears the crown of my grandsire, Jaehaerys the Conciliator, a prudent ruler, the wisest of Targaryen kings, whose reign outlasted every other, even Aegon the Conqueror's. And that's a very fair point. And she's also the only one, like everyone wants to just plunge us into war. She was the only one showing mercy and restraint and not just, you know, bullheadedly charging into war, right? She's calculating, she's weighing all her options before she just jumps into something, which is very, very smart of her. And that's why she's my queen. Fuck Aegon. But after Rhaenys stands up for her, we cut to Rhaenys and Corlys being cute in the rain. They probably said something here, but I just couldn't get over how cute they looked. You know, he was like feeding her something and they're like talking over this piece of wood and it's like raining, but they're like, oh, we're just getting a little bit of dryness in this rain, but we're still outside, but we're talking to each other. I just wanted them to kiss. But I was like, oh, they look at them all cute. But then we cut back to Rhaena and the kids set to leave for Pentos, and Rhaenyra sends the eggs with her as well. And it has been confirmed, I believe, that 3 of these 4 eggs end up turning into Daenerys Targaryen, Emilia Clarke's character from Game of Thrones. So these 4 eggs, 3 of these end up being Drogon, and the other 2, of course, no one remembers the other 2, Viserys, something like that. But either way, the 3 dragons end up in there. But then this 4th egg, this yellow one, or whatever one isn't with the 3 eggs, what happens with that one? Is maybe Rhaena here gonna end up being a dragon rider? Because she was very upset she wasn't in this episode, so possibly. But I have a clip here of Rhaenyra sending off her babies, and you know, it's very sad, but I think we should watch it real quick. Oh, she kisses and Joffrey hugs her from behind, goes, "Mummy." So poor Joffrey Strong there, and the brown hair boy, he's gonna be sent off too, and he's all sad. He knows something's wrong here. He's like, "Bye, Mummy, I want to be with you." And then her other 2 sons with Daemon, she kisses and sends him off as well. But also, like, just gotta state real quick, Rhaenyra in her swag, like, all of the House Black, like, outfits here, all of them look dope. Like, I just gotta say, like, that Team Black wardrobe is really, really spot on. Rhaena and Baela hug, and then Rhaena's off on her way. Baela's going to be on Dragonback in a little bit, and then she has a great little scene later in this episode. But she's around, so Baela and Jace are still around dragon riding, and the remaining 3 boys are now going to Pentos to kind of secure the future. And at first, Rhaena thought this was like a punishment, but she realizes that, like, hey, Rhaenyra goes, listen, if everything is good to go sour here, you're our future, right? And like, these little boys aren't going to be king. You're going to be the next one in line, because if all of us get wiped out, you're the oldest, so you're going to be the one left. And it wasn't because you're not a dragon rider, just you're the only one that Rhaenyra can trust with her babies, you know? So she takes her niece, but also kind of like daughter-in-law now. It's very messy. But then we cut to Alicent and Helena having a conversation and talking about the loss of her son, and Helena is not sure if she should really feel as much remorse as she should. She was like, babes die all the time, you know? You know, they end up talking, and right as soon as Alicent goes to say something, Helena turns around and goes, "I forgive you." And it's like, you know, it's confusing at first. You're like, wait, forgive her for what? But like, maybe it's dream seeing and she's forgiving her for something that hasn't happened yet, or she's just, you know, doesn't want to hear whatever's about to come out of her mom's mouth, but she's already forgiven her, and she's just like, "Hey, I forgive you. You don't need to say it. I forgive you. You're my mom. I still love you." And Alicent just kind of like, okay. But then we cut to Larys Strong talking to Aegon, wearing the Conqueror's armor. And Aegon asks Larys to be his master of whisperers. And the Kingsguard are his friends. And they go, let's go out. A squire hasn't been laid for the first time. And Aegon kind of straightens up and goes, you're sworn to chastity. And they all laugh, and he's like still stone-faced, and they kind of like straight up and go, yes, your grace. But like they're all a bunch of punks, and now they're like his friends, so like they're not really Kingsguard at all. You know, like they're his whole like Kingsguard is shit. And now his Hand of King and Lord Commander is out fighting, you know, like, so, you know, Aegon's got no one really to tell him what to do. Otto's not there, you know, so Aegon's just gonna do whatever the fuck he wants at this point, which is just, I know, gonna end poorly. But also, like, these Kingsguard thinks they can do whatever they want because they know that their Lord Commander is fucking the king's mother. And they're just like, oh, well, if Sir Criston could do it, then all of us can do it. Must be, you know? Like, he's not leading by example at all. So they think they can get away with whatever they want. But Aegon, even though he stands up for a second, goes, you're supposed to be celibate. And they're like, yes, sir. He ends up going out and taking the squire out anyways. They walk into this bar, and it's a quick scene, but this guy's talking, and he says he's the bastard brother to Prince Daemon and King Viserys, uncle to the one true king, Rhaenyra Targaryen, and then kick open the doors, Aegon, the king of King's Landing, hey, the usurper, you know, and this guy's saying, oh, I'm Queen Rhaenyra, and then immediately bows to King Aegon, and then Aegon buys a round for the bar, right? So he's winning over some small folk here for buying them rounds. Small folk are definitely easily won over. We cut to Aegon drunk, walking through the bar at this point and trying to find the squire, or now it's like a whorehouse bar type thing. I don't know if it was a different location than the bar, but you know, he goes to the whorehouse and he's opening up curtains to try. He goes, oh, this girl's great. Opens up the curtain. This girl's blowing this dude with this huge cock. He's like, oh, maybe this one. They're fucking. He goes, oh, maybe this one. They're fucking. He goes, we'll find one. Don't worry. And he's opening pretty much every door in this place, trying to find someone that's not occupied. And finally opens a door and sees his brother, Aemon Targaryen, laying naked with this whore. But also, we find out that this is the first and only woman that Aemon has laid with. And he's just been coming back instead of, like, you know, getting a different whore every time, like probably his brother would, Aegon. So we got a great clip of this, and the actor that plays Aemon goes full frontal in this, so I'll probably have to edit that part out, but here's the rest of the clip.
Aemon the Fierce! You have come so far, and yet you still lie with your very first.
So Aegon, of course, finds this hilarious, but Aemon there, holy Christ, I mean, shit ripped. Nice piece. But, like, I wasn't expecting that at all. All of a sudden, like, you know he had, like, a robe or, like, clothes there. Like, the woman, like, when someone walks in and she tosses her little robe on, you know Aemon had to have a robe there. But now that his squire's gonna be fucking his lady there, he's like, stands up and goes, your squire's welcome to her. One whore's as good as the other. And he walks away, big dog in that shit, just goes, yeah, whatever, I'm gonna walk fully buck-ass naked at this bitch and show these guys who's boss. And it kind of works, because, you know, it's peacocking, but at the same, see what I did there? It's peacocking. Or cocking, whatever. But, you know, you see the remorse. At first, he's really pissed and he's sad that this is happening, but then he just kind of stands up and gets pissed and walks out. And I feel like this is going to come back to bite Aegon in the ass, because he had his loyal brother, as, you know, he'll do whatever he wants him to do. But after that, maybe there'll be some rift between Aemon and Aegon. But then we cut to Sir Criston Cole in a field, and Sir Gawain is trying to go to an inn, and Sir Criston goes, we are exposed, and I have a clip of this.
We're exposed. What?
I really wanted Bela to get their ass right there. Like, imagine Cole's a little bit behind everyone, and they're about to ride in, and her dragon just picks up Cole and fucking kills him. But she didn't have any orders to attack, but she certainly scared the bejeebus out of Gawain. And then Sir Criston Cole kind of gets like a little one-up, you know, alpha moment, like, you will not be going to any fucking inns. We'll be traveling by night and under the cover of trees. You're following my orders, you know, like, and so he kind of gets a moment to be like, hey, fuck you, bub. But man, I wanted Moondancer and Bela look really good, and I just love the scale of these dragons, because, like, you know, her dragon Moondancer isn't that big, you know, big enough that it can cause some damage and probably burn some trees. They could have burned down at least a good patch of that forest, maybe caught him a little bit, maybe made a box and trapped him in a burning forest. That would have been awesome. Fuck you, Sir Criston Cole and Gawain. But, you know, she didn't have any orders, so she didn't. But I really like the look of her dragon. And her dragon's more like a avatar riding on the back of their Ikron. You know, where then you see like a Daemon, and his dragon, even though it's skinny and long, it's ginormous. But then you look at Vhagar, and it's even bigger, right? And he's got the fat neck, or she, whatever. I don't want to misgender the dragon now. But Bela chases them into the forest, scares the shit out of them, and then goes back to Dragonstone and reports back to the small council. And she tells them what goes on, and yeah, I found Sir Criston Cole and a group of them, and she immediately like snaps her head, like the same way she would look at Daemon, and Bela's Daemon's daughter. So like the same way she would look at Daemon and know exactly what happened, she looks and snaps her neck over to Bela, and she's like, looks at her, and she's like, come on. And she goes, I didn't attack necessarily. You know, like, but now the Greens probably have you know, got word back that people are on Dragonback trying to attack their troops, you know, and, you know, Bela on that dragon, though, looks damn good, and that dragon's not the biggest, but that dragon will get bigger, I'll tell you what, and I like the stripes on it and stuff, but I like how they have, like, mounts, and she's not just on it, you know, like, but Rhaenyra talking to her small council, and her council is just urging her to jump into war, and she, you know, is, you know, it seems like she's about to make a decision. She goes, I have heard your arguments, and I will consider them, and just considers them, doesn't hastily jump into war, which is, you know, what a real ruler should do. Shouldn't just be like, oh, someone said something, kill him, you know, like it should be, all right, someone said something, let's figure it out. All right, who heard what he said? Let's get him, let's talk to him, you know, let's figure out what actually happened, what's the issue here, instead of just killing people, you know, immediately. Let's just kill, you know, like, can't do that, can't do it. But then we cut back to leaky old Harrenhal with Daemon, and Daemon's doors start to bang, and he's kind of having like a little nightmare here in the haunted Harrenhal. So it's an even creepier, crazier nightmare. And Daemon's nightmare I have footage of, so let's watch this clip.
Always coming and going, aren't you? And I have to clean up afterwards.
You will die in this place.
It's such a beautiful scene of, you know, and you see Daemon walking around that castle, and he's just, like, strung out, and he doesn't know what's happening, and it's like, we don't know what's happening as an audience. Is this a nightmare? Is he sleeping? And he stumbles into Rhaenyra, younger Rhaenyra, that we got introduced to from actor Millie Alcock, and she's back for a quick little cameo in this episode, and says to him, always coming and going, aren't you? She's like singing by a fire, and always coming and going, aren't you? And I always have to clean up afterwards. And she's like singing, sewing Jaehaerys's neck, like the kid that got beheaded. So he's like, is he having nightmares about that, or is he having nightmares about Rhaenyra? Is he having nightmares about doing this to Rhaenyra, and how Rhaenyra's cleaning up his mess, and or how he might subconsciously think she's cleaning up his mess? Like, I don't know, but then we cut to, he closes his eyes and he cut to the weirwood tree, and we see a lady with black hair, which we saw in that room when he was claiming Harrenhal. She's like one of the characters that walks up and she's like with the Strongs, but I believe she's a bastard, maybe with the last name River, something like that. But she says to him, "You're gonna die here," and he kind of just like has no lines, but the looks on Matt Smith's face and the pure acting that this man does with no lines is quite astonishing. Like, Matt Smith absolutely slays it in every shape or form for this show, and is good reason he's my favorite character, you know what I mean? But crazy haunted nightmares from that place. But then we cut back to Dragonstone and Rhaenyra talking to Mysaria, and Rhaenyra wants to talk to Alicent face to face, and she goes, "Can you make this happen?" And Mysaria goes, "Killing her would be easier." And she's like, "So we can get people into the King's Landing to kill her, but it will be harder for me to talk to her." But it's Rhaenyra's plan, and it's what she wants to do, so they end up going for it. So she dresses up in her shame cloaks, and she has, I think, this one guy with her as protection, but she walks right up into, you know, the same way Daemon did, took a boat over from Dragonstone, and, you know, this is a good plan, but also a terrible plan, because, like, she could have got caught so easily. She doesn't have her dragon with her, she doesn't have backup, she's just there, really, just one dude, you know, and they're in their, you know, sanctum, you know, like, it's crazy. But they sent someone into her Dragonstone, so she's going in herself to their King's Landing, and I was like, that's some badass queenly shit. But the outfit she's wearing, it definitely pays homage to, you know, Game of Thrones. Shame. And the actress that did that was Hannah Waddingham of Ted Lasso, friggin' Rebecca from Ted Lasso, one of my favorites. She's got a beautiful singing voice and beautiful body, but they covered her up in this cloak and just made her say shame a whole bunch in Game of Thrones. But so Rhaenyra's got her shame clothes on, she's walking through King's Landing, and she makes it all the way to Alicent and gets her one-on-one time with Alicent. And just the fact that she got there to have the conversation and this plan worked out, I was like, she wins, you know, like, because this is craziness that she even made it here. But Alicent is praying, is alone praying with the candles, like we've seen her a couple of times. Rhaenyra talks to her, and I thought this was beautiful parallels between the first season and now the second season. First season, them two talking in this same location, but it's the original actors, Millie Alcock and the original actress that played Alicent, they're talking around the fires. And now we get season 2, you know, first season it was them young, now season 2 we get to see them old talking here at around the fire, and it's a completely different conversation, let me tell you what. But let's play the clip to hear what they talked about.
If I could cry out, your knights would find me, I would be taken or slain. Though not before I killed you. And then what? Oh, I have begun badly.
I love the chemistry between Emma Darcy and Olivia Cook, Rhaenyra and Alicent. They're just, you could tell that they've done a ton of press together, and they did most of the first season together. So now that they're separate, and now that they have to have this scene together, is so good. And she's like, well, if I scream out, she goes, your guards would come and probably capture me or slay me, but not before I kill you. And she's like, she goes, oh shit, this isn't the type of conversation I wanted to have. I have begun poorly. And you see like just the disappointment on her face and kind of the chuckle from Alicent. She's like, huh? Like, wait, what are we doing here? What are you doing here? And they have this whole conversation, and Alicent ends up telling Rhaenyra about what happened that night. So now it's not a whole thing happening because of a miscommunication. Now it's just too late, you know, and Alicent tells Rhaenyra what happened that night, and I saw my father an hour before he passed, and we were talking, and he had said to me, she's like, you lie, saying that he changed his mind, and she's not lying, she just is misconstruing what happened. And she says to her, she said, Aegon, the princess that is promised to unite the realms. And she grabs her. He said this to you. He spoke to you of a song of ice and fire. And she kind of like, huh? And she goes, it was a dream. It was the conqueror's dream. And she goes, the conqueror. And then you see Alicent's face kind of like, oh fuck, I made a mistake. and then doubles down on it and goes, no, there's been no mistake. There's been no mistake. It's too late. It's too late for all this. But you see the look on Rhaenyra's face of like, oh my God, like, what? What? There could be a way to avoid this? You can tell everyone that you made a mistake and that Rhaenyra should be queen rightfully and not Aegon, but now it's too late. And she goes, nope, we're doubling down on it. And she gets up and leaves. Rhaenyra's like, please, you can prevent this war. She goes, there's been no mistake. It's too late, Rhaenyra. Alicent leaves, and Rhaenyra's left sitting there sad and in tears and in the shame robes, and then the credits hit. And I was like, you have to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me. I was like, this show, I'm like, even an episode that doesn't have all that much craziness going on it, just between the stuff in Harrenhal with Daemon, this whole scene with Alicent and Rhaenyra talking, Rhaena getting sent away, Baela attacking Kristen Cole, you know, like there's shit going on even when there's shit not happening. And then the battle between, the battle of the Burning Mill, you know, we didn't get to see a whole lot of it, but I wish we got to see more, but man, dude, what a crazy show and a crazy episode. And, you know, I really miss seeing Otto around, but, you know, he'll be back. He has to be back. At the very end of these episodes, if you guys don't know, stay tuned till after the credits because you get to hear the creators of the show talk about what happened this episode, and then sometimes we get a teaser for the next episode. So this is the teaser for episode 4 that I'm going to play right here.
Only weeks ago, my lord husband was alive, and the realm was at peace. You might be half the king your father was.
Tread carefully.
I'll watch.
All who refuse will have their death.
You afraid, sir?
Worse, I'm rational.
My father believed that I was meant to unite the realm. I needed to know that there was no other path, and now I do.
Hold to your courage! Hold to your wit!
You must send the dragons to war. The horrors I have just loosed cannot be for a crown alone.
Wow. Wow. What a teaser for next week's episode. And the crown ringing on the floor. I'm like, wait, that should be on Rhaenyra's head. Why is it on the floor circling about? And Gawain says to Kristen, he's like, I'm not scared, I'm rational. It's even worse. You know, and we see Vhagar, we see dragons with fire, we see, you know, so next week's got to be a huge battle. And, you know, we saw people loading up crossbows and firing, and then we see Kristen Cole lopping off heads. So, like, next week's going to be nuts. Comment below. Did you enjoy this episode? I hope you enjoyed this video breaking down, talking about it. If you want to talk more House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones, craziness, comment below or message me on my other social medias. Links down in the description below. Like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss future videos. It's the best way to support the channel. My name is Big Cam. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll be back next week to talk another crazy episode of House of the Dragon. So stay tuned until then, and I will see you beautiful people in the next video.